The stars shone brightly over the endless expanse of the galaxy, a silent ocean of light stretching farther than any eye could see. In this vastness, the Galactic Empire had reigned unchallenged for centuries. Its fleets were unmatched, its technology superior, and its authority absolute. Alien races across countless systems bowed to its power, their lives dictated by rules set by beings who believed themselves invincible. Yet, even in such a universe, change had a way of arriving quietly, unnoticed, until it struck with unstoppable force. On the edge of the Empire's territory, a small human fleet appeared. To the aliens, it looked fragile, tiny specks among the immense stars, unarmed compared to the massive warships that patrolled the sector. The humans arrived without fanfare, their ships humming gently through the vacuum of space. They did not signal in the usual patterns of diplomacy or war. Instead, they simply came, moving with purpose, yet seeming harmless. Captain Mara Kane stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Endeavor. She was human, like the rest of her crew, and she carried herself with quiet confidence. Her eyes scanned the stars ahead, calculating, observing, always thinking 2 steps ahead. Unlike the Empire's commanders, she did not rely on fear or intimidation. Humans had a different approach, one based on ingenuity, teamwork, and adaptability. She had learned long ago that in a universe full of mighty foes, survival often depended on thinking beyond conventional limits. The alien monitors blinked as the Empire's scouts detected the human ships. The commanders aboard the massive dreadnought Oblivion laughed at the sight. "Pathetic," one hissed, his voice echoing in the bridge. "These creatures call this a fleet? It is nothing. We could destroy them in moments." Others nodded, sharing the same confidence. They had never seen humans before, but their reputation as a primitive species preceded them. They assumed human technology would be crude, their tactics predictable, and their ships fragile. Yet, even as the Empire's leaders dismissed the humans, a quiet tension began to spread. Reports from scouts indicated that the humans moved in ways that defied conventional calculations. Their formation was fluid, changing constantly, making it difficult for sensors to predict their trajectory. The aliens could not understand it, and that small uncertainty planted the seed of doubt. On board the Endeavor, Captain Kane and her crew were busy. Engineers worked tirelessly in the ship's corridors, adjusting systems, recalibrating engines, and repairing older modules scavenged from derelict vessels. The humans had a philosophy different from the Empire. They believed in continuous improvement, in learning from every experience. Every mistake was an opportunity, every encounter a lesson. While the aliens relied on massive, expensive warships with centralized control, humans preferred ships that were versatile, adaptable, and resilient. As the human fleet moved deeper into the Empire's space, they encountered their first minor challenge. A lone scout drone from the Empire approached, intending to observe, perhaps intimidate. Captain Kane watched quietly, studying its movement. With a swift command, the Endeavor adjusted its trajectory, the ship moving faster than the drone expected. Within moments, the drone was trapped in a controlled energy net, immobilized but unharmed. The Empire's scouts sent frantic messages back to the command fleet. "Impossible," one technician muttered, eyes wide. "These humans are faster than our estimates. Their ships are adaptive." The dreadnought commanders frowned. This was no ordinary encounter. The humans had not fired a weapon, yet they had neutralized an Empire drone with ease. Panic began to stir quietly, though they masked it with anger and disdain. Meanwhile, on the human ships, there was no celebration. The crew treated the encounter as a data point, a lesson to be analyzed. Engineers discussed the drone's behavior, noting patterns, identifying weak points, and considering ways to improve their own designs. Captain Kane walked among them, offering guidance, listening to ideas, encouraging creativity. To the humans, every small victory was just a step toward something greater. As days passed, the human fleet moved steadily through sectors the Empire had long considered secure. Aliens began noticing unusual patterns in trade and communication networks. Systems that had been quiet for decades now showed signs of activity. As human scouts explored, repaired abandoned stations, and quietly assisted smaller species oppressed by the Empire. The humans were not conquering, yet their presence was reshaping the balance of power. The Empire's High Council convened urgently. Massive chambers aboard the Oblivion were filled with delegates from countless worlds, all gathered to discuss this new anomaly. Humans cannot build ships like these, one admiral declared, voice rising in disbelief. Our records indicate no civilization has ever achieved such efficiency and adaptability. It defies logic. Others nodded, equally troubled. Attempts to reproduce the humans' designs in laboratories had failed repeatedly. Alien engineers, despite centuries of experience, could not understand the principles humans applied instinctively. Back on the human fleet, life continued in a steady rhythm. Crew members conducted drills, studied alien technology, and repaired older ships. Captain Kane encouraged open discussion and experimentation. "We don't just build ships," she told her officers one evening, the stars reflected in the viewport behind her. "We create solutions, we adapt, we learn, and we improve. That is what gives us strength." The crew nodded, understanding that their power did not come from size or weapons alone but from their ability to think differently. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, the humans found a derelict research station abandoned long ago. Its technology was strange, ancient, yet compatible with human ingenuity. Engineers and scientists eagerly worked to integrate these discoveries into their ships. Sensors were upgraded, propulsion systems enhanced, and energy efficiency improved. With each advancement, the humans became more capable, more unpredictable, and more of a challenge to the Empire's assumptions. Rumors of human ingenuity spread quickly through the Empire's territories. Smaller species whispered of the newcomers who could move faster than dreadnoughts, repair ships in hours that others could not fix in months, and coordinate as if they shared a single mind. These whispers carried hope, and hope carried change. Across distant worlds, allies and potential allies began reconsidering their loyalty to the Empire, drawn instead by the promise of human innovation and fairness. One evening, Captain Kane stood alone on the observation deck of the Endeavour, looking out at the stars. She reflected on the humans' journey, their resilience, and the unexpected challenges ahead. She knew that the Empire would respond eventually, and that when it did, the humans would need every advantage they could find. Yet, she was confident. Humans had survived against impossible odds before, and their strength lay not only in their ships, but in their courage, adaptability, and unity. As the fleet continued its quiet march through the galaxy, the first signs of panic became evident among the Empire's commanders. Orders were rushed, fleets repositioned hastily, and intelligence teams scrambled to understand the humans' methods. Even the most confident officers could not dismiss what they were seeing. The humans were doing what no other species had achieved, challenging the status quo with simple tools, clever thinking, and unshakable determination. Captain Kane smiled faintly as she watched a young engineer demonstrate a new defensive maneuver on a simulator. This is only the beginning, she thought. Humans had arrived in the galaxy not to conquer with firepower, but to show that intelligence, creativity, and cooperation could overcome even the most formidable foes. The Empire might have numbers, might have technology, but it had underestimated the greatest power of all, the human mind and spirit. By the time the humans reached the edge of the next sector, the Empire's panic was no longer hidden. Messages filled the council chambers. "They cannot be real," one voice protested. "They cannot build ships like this. It is impossible," another officer muttered darkly. "We have underestimated them, perhaps too much." The humans, oblivious to the full extent of the panic they had caused, pressed onward. They repaired, adapted, and prepared. They had no desire to destroy the Empire, but they were ready to defend themselves against anyone who threatened them or the innocent. And with each passing day, the humans' legend grew, a story whispered across the galaxy, a story of creatures small in size but vast in courage, creativity, and determination. The first encounters had ended without large-scale conflict, but the stage was set. The Empire would soon learn a lesson that no amount of technology or intimidation could teach. Humans were not just another species to dismiss. They were a force that could change the galaxy forever. And as Captain Kane watched the stars, she knew this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge the mightiest powers of the universe and prove, once and for all, that humans could do what no one thought possible. The humans' presence in the Empire's territory continued to unsettle the alien commanders. Each day brought new reports of their ingenuity, and each report made the Empire's council more uneasy. Ships that seemed small and ordinary were accomplishing feats that should have been impossible. Sensors, weapons, and engines were being redesigned, often in mid-mission, and human crews adapted as if the chaos of space itself bent to their will. Captain Mara Kane walked along the corridors of the Endeavour, observing her crew. Each member moved with precision and purpose, adjusting controls, monitoring systems, and communicating seamlessly. Humans had a unique approach to problems. They did not panic when the unexpected happened. Instead, they analyzed, improvised, and executed solutions quickly. It was a skill that seemed almost unnatural to the Empire's observers, who relied on rigid protocols and massive, centralized fleets. In one small sector, the humans encountered a derelict asteroid station once used by an extinct civilization. It had been abandoned for centuries, its systems dormant, and its purpose forgotten. Human engineers, however, immediately saw opportunity. They explored every level, repaired failing life support, and reactivated power grids. Where alien engineers saw only wreckage, humans saw tools and potential. Within days, the station became a hub for their fleet, a forward base that allowed them to extend operations deeper into the Empire's territory. The Empire noticed the activity quickly. Scouts reported the station's reactivation, and commanders expressed disbelief. "They are restoring technology that even we cannot comprehend," said one officer. "How can they understand it? We have studied these relics for centuries without success," another added. "Their ships are not just functional, they are evolving. Every day, they become more efficient, more dangerous." Panic quietly spread across the council chambers. The humans' simple ingenuity seemed to outpace even the Empire's most advanced laboratories. Meanwhile, humans were not merely improving technology. They were changing tactics. In a routine patrol near a dense asteroid field, a small human scout vessel encountered a patrol of Empire drones. Instead of engaging directly, the human pilot led them through a series of complex maneuvers, weaving between asteroids in ways that the drone's programming could not predict. One by one, the drones became entangled in gravitational anomalies or collided with debris, while the scout emerged unscathed. Back on the Endeavour, Captain Kane analyzed the encounter with her officers. "It's not just the technology," she explained. "It's understanding the environment and using it to our advantage. The universe offers tools for those willing to see them." Her words reflected a fundamental human philosophy. Strength was not measured by firepower alone, but by intelligence, adaptability, and creativity. The Empire's Council convened again, this time in heightened alarm. Commanders brought reports of isolated fleets being disabled without casualties on the human side. Entire patrols had been rendered ineffective through clever maneuvers, energy redirection, and surprisingly effective defensive systems. "This is impossible," shouted one high-ranking admiral. "We have faced countless civilizations, yet none could act so unpredictably. How do they achieve this?" Efforts to replicate human tactics in the laboratories failed repeatedly. Alien engineers could copy ship designs, but they could not replicate the humans' thought processes. It was as if every human acted with an intuition that could not be coded, a natural understanding of flexibility and coordination. The Empire realized it was not merely facing superior technology. It was facing a fundamentally different approach to warfare and problem-solving. Meanwhile, humans began forging alliances with smaller species within the Empire. These civilizations had long been subjugated, their resources exploited. They watched the humans with curiosity and growing hope. When human engineers repaired old stations or shared medical aid, it was done without demand or oppression. Captain Kane understood the importance of trust. Allies were stronger when their freedom was respected. In one alliance negotiation, a small aquatic species from a distant system expressed skepticism. "We have lived under Empire rule for centuries," said their leader. "Why should we trust these humans?" Kane smiled gently. "We do not ask you to trust blindly. We only ask you to judge us by our actions. We do not conquer. We create, we protect, and we adapt. That is all we ask." The leader's eyes widened, recognizing a truth they had never seen in centuries of domination. Humans acted differently. Not out of fear or ambition, but out of principle and ingenuity. Human crews also began integrating technology from other civilizations they encountered. They repaired ancient energy systems, enhanced propulsion mechanisms, and modified weaponry in ways that respected each species' limitations. Each modification made their ships faster, more maneuverable, and surprisingly resilient. For the Empire, this adaptability was alarming. Their largest warships were built for sheer power, but human vessels seemed to turn every advantage into a weapon of opportunity. One night, as the human fleet rested in a newly reclaimed station, Captain Kane reviewed the data from recent encounters. Her officers gathered around, analyzing maps, energy outputs, and enemy patrol patterns. "The Empire will respond," she said calmly. "They always do. But they will not understand us until they experience us fully. And when they do, we will be ready." Her confidence inspired her crew. They were not invincible, but they were prepared, and preparation was a human strength. As humans continued to advance through the Empire's space, the aliens' panic grew. High-ranking officers attempted to intimidate smaller species into resisting human influence, but whispers of rebellion had already begun. Across distant systems, colonists and minor civilizations secretly aided the humans, offering resources, intelligence, and even personnel. The humans were not creating fear, they were inspiring courage, and courage spread like wildfire among those oppressed by the Empire. The Empire's fleets attempted their first coordinated maneuvers against the humans. Massive dreadnoughts moved in formation, relying on brute force and overwhelming firepower. Yet when they encountered human ships, even these colossal vessels struggled. Human engineers had developed adaptive shields, energy redirection systems, and propulsion enhancements that allowed their ships to evade attacks that would have destroyed conventional vessels. Each encounter became a lesson for the humans, and with each lesson, they improved. In one particularly tense encounter, a squadron of human vessels was cornered near a nebula. Sensors were jammed, and visibility was low. The Empire's officers were confident. They believed the humans were trapped. But Captain Kane remained calm. She directed her pilots to use the nebula's electromagnetic fields to create false readings. Ships appeared where there were none, moved in unexpected patterns, and executed maneuvers that seemed impossible. Within hours, the humans escaped without a single casualty, leaving the Empire's commanders baffled and frustrated. The High Council convened once more, the chamber filled with tension and disbelief. "How do they achieve this?" one officer demanded. "Every tactic we use, every technology we deploy, they adapt faster than we can predict." Another added, "They are not just building ships, they are rewriting the rules of engagement. Our assumptions about warfare no longer hold." It was clear. The human's edge was not in firepower alone, but in creativity, adaptability, and coordination. Even the youngest human crew members played a role in this extraordinary success. Engineers, medics, and pilots all contributed ideas that improved tactics and equipment. No contribution was too small, no idea dismissed. This approach, combined with rigorous training and constant observation, allowed humans to anticipate and counter strategies that would have overwhelmed other species. Their unity and shared purpose made them far more effective than any individual or weapon could. Meanwhile, the humans discovered a network of hidden caches left behind by long-extinct civilizations. These contained experimental technologies, energy sources, and propulsion systems far beyond what current science could explain. Human engineers eagerly studied these relics, integrating the discoveries into their ships without losing sight of practicality. Where the Empire saw relics as curiosities, humans saw tools, lessons, and opportunities. Rumors of human ingenuity spread like wildfire across the Empire's outer worlds. Stories told of small vessels evading dreadnoughts, ancient stations repaired in days, and alien fleets neutralized without direct confrontation. These tales inspired hope in oppressed civilizations and fear among the Empire's commanders. For the first time, the Empire faced not just a new species but a challenge to their very assumptions about power and control. Captain Kane, observing the progress of her fleet, knew that this was only the beginning. The humans had demonstrated their advantage, but larger challenges awaited. The Empire's panic would lead to increasingly aggressive responses, and the humans needed to remain prepared, adaptive, and united. Yet, she had confidence. Humans had survived impossible odds before, and they had grown stronger for each encounter. Their edge lay not just in their ships but in their minds, their creativity, and their willingness to learn and adapt. As the human fleet moved deeper into the Empire's territory, their influence began to spread. Smaller species reached out for guidance. Abandoned stations were repaired, and the whispers of rebellion grew louder. Captain Kane reflected on the journey so far. Humans had arrived not to conquer with brute force, but to demonstrate what could be achieved through ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, she knew the human story was only beginning. The Empire, meanwhile, struggled to comprehend what they faced. Their fleets, once symbols of unquestionable power, were now uncertain and reactive. Commanders realized, often too late, that they were not dealing with ordinary opponents. Humans were rewriting the rules of strategy and engineering, challenging centuries of assumptions, and proving that adaptability, intelligence, and determination could surpass even the mightiest weapons. In quiet moments, as crews repaired and trained, Captain Kane reminded them of a simple truth. Strength is not always in size or firepower, she said. It is in courage, creativity, and the will to keep improving. That is what makes us human. And that is why we will survive. Her words resonated deeply with every member of the fleet. They understood that the galaxy might be vast and dangerous, but their unity, intelligence, and spirit made them formidable beyond measure. As the human fleet continued its steady march, the Empire's panic grew, now impossible to conceal. Messages of confusion, frustration, and disbelief flooded council chambers. High-ranking officers argued endlessly over strategy, each convinced that a solution existed, yet unable to find it. Humans were not merely surviving, they were thriving, and the realization shook the Empire to its core. And so, the humans pressed onward, quietly, steadily, and confidently. They were explorers, engineers, and defenders. They were not invincible, but they were adaptable, courageous, and united. Every day, they proved that intelligence and ingenuity could challenge the greatest empires. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, one truth became clear. The humans were changing the galaxy, and nothing could stop their rise. The Empire was no longer content to watch humans expand quietly into their space. Panic had grown into anger, and anger had turned into action. Across the galaxy, massive fleets were mobilized, dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, each captain ordered to crush the humans before their influence could spread further. It was the first real test of human ingenuity against the full might of an alien empire. Captain Mara Kane observed the movements of the approaching Empire fleets from the bridge of the Endeavor. Her crew worked efficiently, eyes scanning multiple monitors, hands moving in perfect rhythm across controls. The humans were outnumbered, and their ships were smaller. But Kane was confident. She had studied every pattern, anticipated every tactic the aliens could deploy, and prepared her fleet for maneuvers the Empire had never seen. When the first wave of Empire scouts entered human-controlled space, the humans did not panic. They spread out, using natural asteroid fields and nebulae to conceal their numbers and confuse sensors. A small scout vessel engaged a fleet twice its size, leading them into a trap of gravitational anomalies. Enemy ships collided with debris or became entangled in energy distortions. None of it was luck. Every move was carefully calculated, tested in simulations, and executed flawlessly. The Empire commanders were shocked. "This is impossible," one bellowed, slamming a clawed hand against a console. "They are smaller, weaker, and yet they evade and neutralize our forces with ease. How can this be?" Panic spread through their ranks. Fleet formations broke down as officers attempted to respond to threats they could not predict. The humans were proving that adaptability and ingenuity could rival brute strength. Captain Kane directed her fleet with calm precision. "Use the environment. Stay flexible. Trust your training," she ordered. The humans moved as one, adjusting formations in real time, compensating for damage, and exploiting weaknesses in the enemy's strategy. They did not rely on massive firepower. Instead, they used clever maneuvers, energy redirection, and coordinated attacks to disable the Empire's ships. In the heart of a dense asteroid belt, the humans executed a daring plan. They had modified the ship's engines to handle extreme gravitational variations, allowing them to weave through the belt at impossible speeds. The Empire fleet pursued blindly, attempting to use their superior numbers to overwhelm the humans. Instead, they found themselves trapped, crashing into hidden fields of debris, or becoming caught in gravitational vortices the humans had anticipated. One by one, their ships were neutralized, without human losses. Back on the Endeavor, engineers monitored the results with quiet satisfaction. Each encounter provided new data, which was quickly integrated into their systems. Shields were reinforced, engines tuned, and weapon systems recalibrated. Every engagement made the human fleet stronger, more adaptable, and even harder to predict. Captain Kane smiled. This was the essence of human ingenuity. Learn from every challenge, improve, and never remain static. The Empire, however, refused to admit defeat. They dispatched a second wave, this time with even larger ships and advanced targeting systems. The humans anticipated this and prepared a more complex strategy. Smaller ships acted as decoys, drawing attention while hidden vessels attacked from unexpected angles. Energy pulses were redirected to mislead sensors, and electronic countermeasures disabled the enemy's targeting systems. The larger Empire ships, though powerful, were confused and disoriented. During one skirmish, the humans captured a high-ranking alien commander. Instead of harming him, Captain Kane treated him with fairness and respect. She demonstrated the humans' philosophy of intelligence over cruelty, showing the commander how she had anticipated his fleet's tactics and countered them efficiently. The commander was stunned. "Your methods, they are unlike anything we have seen," he admitted, awe in his voice. Kane nodded. "It is not just technology. It is understanding, adaptability, and unity." The Empire was forced to regroup. Their fleets, once symbols of unquestionable dominance, were now in disarray. High-ranking officers argued endlessly over strategy, each convinced there was a solution, yet unable to find one. The humans were teaching a lesson the Empire had never expected. Strength was not merely in numbers or firepower, but in creativity, coordination, and the ability to learn and adapt quickly. On board the Endeavor, Captain Kane addressed her crew. "They will try again. The Empire never gives up easily. But remember this: they can outnumber us. They can outgun us. But they cannot outthink us. If we remain alert, adaptable, and united, our advantage is our mind and our will." Her words inspired every member of the fleet. Humans were not invincible, but their courage, ingenuity, and cooperation made them formidable beyond measure. As the humans pressed deeper into Empire territory, smaller civilizations began to take notice. Stories of human victories spread across systems, tales of fleets that could evade dreadnoughts and disable them without casualties. Oppressed species began to send aid supplies, intelligence, even volunteers to support the humans. Captain Kane welcomed them all, knowing that alliances built on trust and respect were stronger than those forced through fear. The Empire, growing increasingly desperate, launched a full-scale assault on a human-occupied outpost. Massive dreadnoughts advanced, confident in their overwhelming firepower. The humans, however, were ready. They had prepared the outpost as a trap. Environmental hazards were rigged to disrupt enemy sensors. Energy grids were modified to create false readings. Smaller ships acted as bait, luring the Empire vessels into zones where the humans could strike with precision. When the battle began, it was chaos for the Empire and coordinated brilliance for the humans. Dreadnoughts were forced to maneuver through asteroid fields at impossible angles. Energy beams misfired due to interference, and sensors constantly reported false positions. Human ships struck at vulnerabilities the aliens did not realize existed, disabling engines, weapons, and shields with minimal effort. Within hours, the Empire's assault was neutralized. The humans had won without losing a single ship. After the battle, Captain Kane addressed the captured enemy commanders. "You see now," she said calmly, "it is not the size of the fleet or the complexity of the weapons that determines victory. It is the ability to adapt, to understand your environment, and to work together. This is human strength." Some commanders, humbled, nodded in reluctant respect. Others refused to believe it, still clinging to the notion that brute force would eventually prevail. The human fleet continued to expand, each victory teaching new lessons. Engineers integrated technologies captured from the Empire, adapting them to human designs. Systems were upgraded, propulsion enhanced, and defensive measures improved. Every engagement, every skirmish, added to their growing advantage. They were not merely surviving, they were thriving, reshaping the balance of power through intelligence and ingenuity. Allied species began to coordinate with the humans, sharing knowledge and resources. Together, they built small but highly effective fleets, capable of defending themselves and assisting in human operations. Captain Kane understood the value of these alliances. The humans did not conquer, they inspired. Hope and courage spread like wildfire among those oppressed by the Empire, while panic and frustration consumed its leaders. As the human fleet rested in a reclaimed station, Captain Kane reflected on the campaign so far. The Empire had underestimated them, assuming humans were weak, predictable, and inferior. They had been proven wrong. Every challenge, every encounter, had strengthened the humans and exposed the flaws in the Empire's assumptions. Intelligence, adaptability, courage, and cooperation had become weapons far more powerful than dreadnoughts or superweapons. The Empire would not give up. They would regroup, strategize, and launch another offensive. But Captain Kane knew the humans were ready. Their greatest weapon was not the technology they commanded, but the way they thought, learned, and worked together. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, the humans prepared for whatever the galaxy might throw at them next, confident that ingenuity and unity would see them through. In the midst of the galaxy, a small human scout observed an Empire fleet moving in secret. The human pilot smiled, anticipating the coming engagement. "They think they can surprise us," he said. "They do not understand. Every move, every tactic, we have anticipated. They cannot outthink humans." The sentiment spread quickly through the fleet. Confidence was not arrogance, it was the result of preparation, experience, and understanding. And so, the humans continued their advance, proving that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome even the mightiest foes. The Empire, once dominant, was now in disarray, struggling to comprehend the true nature of the challenge they faced. The humans were not merely a new species, they were a force that redefined power, showing the galaxy that victory was not measured by size or firepower, but by creativity, unity, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Captain Kane stood on the observation deck of the Endeavour, watching the stars. She reflected on the humans' journey, their victories, and the lessons learned. Every encounter had been a test, every skirmish a proof of principle. The humans had shown that even against overwhelming odds, intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation could achieve what others considered impossible. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but the humans were ready to face it, united and prepared. As the fleet moved forward, Captain Kane knew that the greatest battles were still to come. The Empire would not relent, and the humans would be tested like never before. Yet, she had no doubt that they would prevail not through sheer force, but through ingenuity, courage, and the unique human ability to learn, adapt, and overcome. And in that knowledge lay a quiet but unshakable power, one that would continue to shape the galaxy in ways the Empire could never anticipate. The galaxy was changing. What had begun as a quiet human expedition had grown into a force that the Galactic Empire could no longer ignore. Panic had spread among its fleets, confusion among its commanders, and hope among the oppressed. Humans had proven their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage time and again, and now the balance of power was shifting in ways no one could have predicted. Captain Mara Kane stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, surveying the expanse before them. Systems that had once been firmly under Empire control were now hubs of human influence. Smaller species, once silenced by fear, had begun to speak openly, seeking alliances, sharing intelligence, and repairing old ships to join the human cause. The humans were not merely fighting, they were inspiring. Every action, every choice, demonstrated that strength was not always in numbers or weapons, but in intelligence, unity, and creativity. The Empire had learned the hard way that brute force alone could not defeat humans. Fleets that had once been considered invincible were now scattered and disorganized. Dreadnoughts sat idle, unsure of how to counter tactics that relied on adaptability and environmental manipulation. Engineers worked tirelessly, trying to reverse engineer human technology. But it was not simply the ships or weapons that gave humans an edge, it was the way they thought. Humans learned quickly, adapted constantly, and coordinated seamlessly. Their greatest advantage lay not in their ships, but in their minds. Yet the Empire was stubborn. High-ranking officers convened in secret councils, debating strategy and desperate for a solution. "We cannot allow this," one officer growled. "They are too unpredictable, too fast, and too clever. If we do not act decisively, our control will crumble." Another added, "Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps we allowed them to grow stronger than we imagined." The realization settled uneasily among the council. Humans had changed the rules of engagement. On board the Endeavour, Captain Kane prepared her fleet for what she knew would be a critical moment. The Empire, though weakened and frustrated, would not surrender easily. They would launch their most coordinated offensive yet, hoping to crush the humans once and for all. Kane called her officers together. "They will strike hard. They will try to overwhelm us with numbers and firepower. But they cannot outthink us. Remember what makes us strong: unity, creativity, and adaptability. Trust each other, trust your training, and we will prevail." When the Empire's fleets advanced, the humans were ready. The battle unfolded across a vast starfield dotted with asteroids, nebulae, and abandoned stations. Human ships moved like living organisms, weaving through hazards, using the environment to their advantage. Dreadnoughts fired massive energy beams, but their attacks were anticipated, deflected, or absorbed by adaptive shields. Smaller ships, acting in concert, disabled key systems on the Empire vessels, creating confusion and panic among enemy crews. Human ingenuity shone brightest in moments of apparent disadvantage. When a fleet was cornered near a massive asteroid, engineers activated newly integrated propulsion systems that allowed ships to pivot, accelerate, and escape in ways the Empire could not calculate. False signals misled sensors. Energy diversions created illusions of multiple ships, and coordinated strikes disabled the enemy without risking human lives. Every move was precise, every tactic carefully executed. The Empire realized too late that victory was slipping through their fingers. Amid the chaos, Captain Kane captured the Empire's flagship commander. She did not strike in anger or seek revenge. Instead, she offered a demonstration of human strategy. "We do not fight to destroy for its own sake. she explained calmly. We fight to protect, to create opportunity, and to survive. Intelligence and adaptability are stronger than fear or force. The commander, humbled, realized that humans had taught the galaxy a lesson no amount of weapons could convey. True power lay in ingenuity and cooperation, not intimidation. The battle ended decisively. Empire fleets, battered and disoriented, retreated to regroup. Humans had lost no ships, while the Empire suffered heavy damage. Word of the victory spread quickly to other systems. Civilizations long oppressed began to resist quietly. Inspired by the humans' success, the narrative of invincibility that the Empire had maintained for centuries began to crumble, replaced by stories of human courage, creativity, and resilience. With the Empire in retreat, humans moved to solidify their gains. Captured stations were repaired, fleets were reinforced, and new alliances were formed. Humans shared their knowledge carefully, teaching smaller civilizations how to adapt, repair, and defend themselves. They did not conquer, they uplifted, turning fear into cooperation, and suspicion into trust. Captain Kane knew the importance of this approach. A galaxy that fought together could withstand any tyranny, and humans had the wisdom to guide that transformation. In the Empire's High Council, desperation grew. Commanders debated endlessly, trying to find a way to regain control. Yet with every failed attempt, the humans' reputation expanded. They are not just building ships, one officer admitted reluctantly. They are teaching others to think differently. Every encounter strengthens not only their fleet but their allies. The Council struggled to maintain cohesion. Where there had once been unquestionable authority, now there was doubt, confusion, and fear. Meanwhile, humans continued to advance. They explored abandoned sectors, restored lost technologies, and integrated new designs into their fleet. Every discovery added to their adaptability. Ships became faster, more resilient, and capable of responding to situations the Empire could not anticipate. Crews grew skilled in environmental tactics, electronic warfare, and unconventional strategies. Humanity's approach was not based on domination. It was based on understanding, learning, and using every advantage the galaxy offered. Small allied species thrived under human guidance. Engineers, pilots, and scientists from multiple civilizations worked alongside humans, learning, experimenting, and improving. Together, they became a coalition stronger than the Empire had imagined. One not reliant on fear but on shared knowledge and cooperation. Captain Kane understood that this was the true victory. Empowering others while maintaining humanity's core principles of ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. As humans expanded their influence, the Empire's remnants faced a difficult choice. They could continue futile attacks, risking further losses, or negotiate terms recognizing the humans' position and influence. Ultimately, reason prevailed, though reluctantly. Empire representatives approached Captain Kane for negotiations. "We underestimated you," one admitted. "Your tactics, your technology, and your alliances have changed the balance of power. We seek terms to avoid further conflict." Kane listened carefully, considering the broader implications. Humans had no desire to dominate. They sought balance, cooperation, and a galaxy where ingenuity and courage were recognized over fear and oppression. The resulting agreements reshaped the political landscape. Human-influenced territories gained autonomy, smaller species were granted protections, and technologies were shared selectively to ensure stability. Humans had not conquered through force but had earned respect through their actions, demonstrating that true strength comes from intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation rather than intimidation. Captain Kane addressed her fleet after the negotiations. "We have faced great challenges," she said. "We have been outnumbered and underestimated, yet we prevailed. Remember that our strength is not just in our ships or our weapons, but in our minds, our unity, and our courage. The galaxy has seen what humans can do, and this is only the beginning." The crew listened, inspired by the journey they had undertaken, and the challenges yet to come. Even after the major confrontations ended, humans continued to explore. They ventured into unknown sectors, repaired ancient stations, and studied alien civilizations with curiosity and respect. Every encounter strengthened their understanding of the galaxy, expanding their knowledge and influence without resorting to conquest. The humans' philosophy of learning, adapting, and collaborating continued to guide their actions, proving time and again that intelligence and courage could overcome overwhelming odds. Across the galaxy, stories of human ingenuity spread like wildfire. Small colonies whispered of fleets that could evade dreadnoughts, repair ancient technology, and defeat superior forces with creativity and coordination. Tales of Captain Kane and her crew inspired hope in oppressed civilizations and caution in the Empire. Humans had demonstrated that even a seemingly small and unassuming species could redefine the balance of power through ingenuity, courage, and unity. Captain Kane reflected on the journey. Humans had arrived quietly, without fanfare, yet they had changed the galaxy in profound ways. They had faced impossible odds, outsmarted the mightiest fleets, and inspired entire civilizations. Their victories were not measured in destruction, but in influence, cooperation, and the spread of knowledge. Every ship, every crew member, every decision had contributed to a larger purpose, showing the galaxy that true power lay in adaptability, intelligence, and courage. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, the human fleet prepared for the future. They had proven themselves to the Empire and to countless civilizations. Yet Captain Kane knew the galaxy still held unknown dangers. Humans would continue to explore, learn, and adapt. Their journey was far from over, but they faced it with confidence, knowing that ingenuity, cooperation, and courage were forces no empire could suppress. The Empire, humbled and wary, had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. Humans were not merely another species, they were a catalyst for change, a reminder that intelligence and adaptability could surpass brute force, and that courage, combined with creativity, could challenge the mightiest powers. Across the galaxy, civilizations took note, inspired by the humans' example, and began to envision a future, shaped not by fear, but by innovation and cooperation. Captain Kane stood on the observation deck of the Endeavour, looking out at the stars. She thought of every challenge, every victory, and every lesson learned. Humanity had proven itself capable of achieving what no one thought possible. Their ships were not the largest, nor the most heavily armed, but their crews' courage, intelligence, and ingenuity made them formidable. The galaxy had changed, and humans had played a central role in shaping that change. As the fleet moved forward, Captain Kane smiled quietly. The humans had not just survived, they had thrived. They had demonstrated the power of ingenuity, adaptability, and unity. And as the stars stretched endlessly ahead, one truth was clear. Humans had redefined what it meant to be powerful in a galaxy full of wonders, dangers, and possibilities. The journey would continue, but humanity's legacy had already begun to shine. A beacon of hope, courage, and limitless potential.